So same thing, what we're going to do is in step 1, prompt the user. Step 2, we'll do the division portion right here. And so let's get our code here. So once again, in step 1, enter the values. And now here I'm doing something different, because you notice instead of utilizing the word int, I'm utilizing the word float, because we're utilizing numbers that are going to be divided. Well, just before we start utilizing the float, let's actually change this and take a look to see what happens when I use the word int, and then we'll change it back to float. And then step number 2, what we're going to do is print the output. So here's my print statement, and let's go ahead and run this code. So we'll do 10, and then we'll do 3. So 10 divided by 3 is 3.33333. So that ended up working no problem. But let's say if we want to run the program again. Oh, okay. If I run the program again and I have something like this with the 3 arrows down below here, what you could do is actually close the run, and we could rerun the code again. Move that over here. Click on run. So you notice that this is the syntax that's actually starting the code. So now we'll do mark, and if I do 5.5, I'm going to get an error if I enter a value. So this time I didn't specify the user to enter a whole number, and we don't have any conditional tests. Later on we'll basically identify if the user has entered a whole number or a float, but you notice that when I end up typing in a number that's not a whole number, it errors out. So coming back over here, I'm going to change the int to the float. Change that to a float. Alrighty. Close that down, and then we'll rerun it. Alrighty. Start again here in March. So we'll do 5.5 and 3.3. And you notice now at this time it ended up working with our values here. Now one more thing is we could format this, and let me show you another method that we're able to utilize here. So another method, if we take a look at the code, is I'm taking and creating another variable. I'm dividing the numbers, right? num1 divided by num2. And when I do my print statement, so I got one print statement right here. That's identifying the result is. And I have another print statement to identify the data type of result. So here I'm formatting it to only 2 decimal places. So again, take a look at the syntax associated with this. So again, I'm just taking the result, and this is the syntax to make sure that I just do 2 decimal places over. So let me close that. Let's go ahead and open up run again. And here we go, mark. So we do 5.5, 3.3, and you notice that this syntax, or the output right here, corresponds to that particular line, and it rounded it off, and it actually, when it rounded, you notice that we had a whole bunch of 6s, so it took the next one and we got to 2 decimal places. So again, this is when we're formatting things, this is how you want to basically do the format. so we don't have numbers that keep on going forever. All right, great. All right, let's take a look at the next problem. All right, same thing here. This time what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at the remainder. So when we divide numbers, there's going to be a remainder, and that remainder might be important when we do certain tests in other labs that we'll have up and coming. So same thing here. So we're going to create the code to prompt the user to entering two numbers here. So let me get the code over here. So once again, I'm utilizing a integer value for num1 and num2. And in step number 2, we're looking at display the integer of the divided numbers. Use f string. So what we do is the integer part of the number. So when we're dividing this, we're looking at the remainder part. So our syntax here is going to be this. So if we take a look at the code here, where did my cursor go? There's my code. So here, the integer part of num1 and num2, and you notice how we end up dividing it this way. So let's go ahead and look at step number 3. So display the remainder, and we're going to format it as well. So the remainder part, the syntax is going to be something like this for step number 3. So if we look at step 3 here, so we look at step 3, this is going to be our print statement. So the remainder of num1 divided by num2, and this is the syntax that we're utilizing to get the remainder. So the remainder is going to be 2. So if we do a simple, so we had 3 divided by 11. So that means 3 goes in there 9 times. We subtract that, we got 9, 10, 11. So we got a remainder of basically 2 over here. So that's how we get the 3 value, and that's how we get the 2 value in this particular case. So let's go ahead and run the program and see what happens. So I'll bring this over here. So I'll do 11, 3. So the integer part is going to be 3, and the remainder part is going to be 2. So this is important because then we're able to see if the value is, the number is going to be, odd or even. So there's different ways to be utilizing this in some future code. All right, so now let's take a look at the next lab here. So this is doing exponents. So in our exponent one, step 1, we're going to basically prompt the user to enter a base value and then an exponent value here. So our syntax will be slightly different for the input. So once again, we'll come back over here, and then we'll add the code. So we're looking for an integer, so we have a base num and then our exponential, and then our print statement for this is going to be something along the lines of this. So our base number to the power of our exponential number is equal to, we're going to be num base star star and our exponent value. So let's go ahead and run this and take a look to see what happens here. Alrighty, let's My base value is 2, my exponent value is 7. So there you go. So we were able to figure out what the exponent value is with that. Alrighty, we're on a roll here. We're almost done. We got one more lab. And here is a interesting one. So what we're going to do is we already have code structured. So we have code that gives us this particular output. What we want to do then is write a couple lines of code, actually 3 lines of code, to make this a lot more nicer. As you can see, things are not formatted, they're not aligned, so we have, it just doesn't look presentable. At this section here, we have things that are all lined up in terms of where the decimal places should be and everything else. So what we're going to do is right here, you're going to write the code, and this is what the code is going to look like. So this time I didn't do a function here. We're just going to pursue it just regularly. So if you look at the syntax here, so I have my constant value of sales tax rate, which is actually 3.5%, but we're writing it in decimal format. And down below here, you notice that we're doing something really neat. So we're identifying the price of the home because we're adding or using this component there. And here I get some additional values. So price of the home colon 10. So 10 means that we're looking at 10 spaces over here, basically non-leading zeros. We have the sales rate. So we're going to do 2 places there. And then the sales home. So this is going to match up with this part, so it's all aligned. So let's go ahead and run the code. Let me move this over here. So enter sale price of the home. So let's say it's 350,000. No commas. And this is how my regular output looks like, and this is how it's nicely formatted. Okay, so we can see the way we did it. Everything is aligned up, even with the decimal places and the sales tax right there. And the reason I bring this up is because we're going to be doing a lab that you need to do a receipt type of invoice and make sure that things are all lined up. All right, so those are your hints for the up and coming lab.